All right, my name is Spencer Holst with Grit Daily. I'm glad to be here with you guys today. Joining me on stage, and I'm about to get off, but joining me for now, are Roger Dooley. He's a keynote speaker and author of Friction and Brainfluence, as well as a Forbes contributor. And then we have Danny Tomsett, founder and CEO of UneeQ. And they're going to talk about the rise of living, breathing AI as it becomes more human-like and harder to differentiate between the people around you.
Great. Thanks so much, Spencer. And Danny, it's great to be here with you. I understand since we're going to be talking about Sophie and your unique AI, that you actually have a demo that I think for the folks watching here would be interesting to see that first, and then we can proceed with the conversation.
Yeah, that sounds good. Not everyone hears the phrase digital human and knows exactly what we're talking about, but particularly in the world of AI, digital humans are interactive, high-fidelity avatars that you can talk with, they engage with you, they have personality. But I could talk for ages, and you'd all imagine a lot of different things. So we're going to show a quick video now to get everyone on the same page. So can we cue that? I can cue that.
For decades, we've dreamed of interacting with personified AI. The idea has been popularized by books, gaming, and film, with famous examples like Data from Star Trek and C-3PO from Star Wars. With recent developments in AI technology, such as ChatGPT, realistic voice synthesis, and MetaHuman, we're now much closer to realizing that dream. But there's one critical component that's needed, and that's the ability to imbue the AI with a sense of presence and aliveness. And that's why we created Synonym, a synthetic animation system that is inspired by human behavior. Its architecture includes a combination of AI components to process contextual input and generate behavior for digital humans. At UneeQ, we believe to create truly memorable and impactful experiences, digital humans need to feel alive. They should be situationally aware. Through their perception, they're able to see the world and react accordingly. They should move naturally in a way that feels organic and alive. And they should express themselves with emotion and feeling in order to really connect with us. Every digital human is unique, and creators can take the director's chair by defining a personality for their digital human, and even directly influence interactions with inline tagging. Using Synonym on our UneeQ platform, you'll be able to create a wide range of digital humans. From product geniuses that have unlimited patience and care when helping with complex buying decisions, to teachers with empathy that guide and inspire any topic of your choice. You could even create historical figures that serve as our memories, helping us learn about and experience the past. Right now, we're only scratching the surface of what's possible. With Synonym, we're bringing the metaverse to life.
All right, so there you have it.
Very cool. And I have played with this a little bit on your website, Danny, and Sophie, who is the most commonly viewed AI or sim, is really uncannily human-like. It doesn't quite cross Uncanny Valley where you think you're talking to a human, but all the little mannerisms and whatnot. A couple things I noticed were that she, rather than sitting robot-like staring at the camera, she tends to move around a little bit. Her expressions change. She blinks. What are the factors that go into making an AI seem convincingly human?
So I think what's really important, I think, with AI like this, is really understanding that trust is so key to creating good outcomes. And we make Sophie intentionally not make you feel like, is this actually human or not? That's not the first impression we want. We want people to actually know that we're intentionally not human and that it is AI. And that first step of trust then goes to the next, which is, well, what is this experience going to do for me? What is this actually going to be like, right? And most people have a problem they're trying to solve where they use digital humans, whether that's trying to learn a product, trying to understand how to navigate a service, or even training, right? And so then it's about the natural engagement that we already instinctively know how to do as humans, right? Like you're reading my body language right now. I'm reading your body language, the way that you're nodding as I'm talking, the way that my breathing rate might change if I'm a little nervous sitting here in front of everyone. These things our brains are picking up on all the time, and we're not always conscious of that, but it is something that's happening. And that's why we design those things, because it can actually move into something that feels far too robotic, far too uncanny if it's just sitting there moving a mouth like this, right? And so when we create these more natural human-like characteristics and animations, it brings a level of comfort, again flowing into trust. And we'll talk a little bit more, I'm sure, today about where that actually then plays out for value, right? What kind of value is that creating? But that's why we do it, and that's why she moves and breathes and does the things you just talked about.
Yeah, I am a big believer in the importance of empathy for marketers and businesses in general, particularly when a customer has a problem. I'm curious, can Sophie or any of your Sims, can they express an appropriate emotion? If, say, you work with some telecom companies, I noticed, somebody calls in and, gee, I just dropped my phone onto concrete and it's smashed. Clearly, a human at that point would probably say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I'm sure that, can she, sort of recognize that that is a sad problem for the customer and respond accordingly? And would her appearance reflect that?
Yes. This is the most amazing thing, I think. Centered around information and search. So despite all efforts to design, really great UI and how that kind of helps us find information, answers questions, self-service, nothing wrong with any of that. But the missing piece, as we become more and more reliant on self-service and digital channels, is that human touch, which is what you just talked about, which is empathy. It's about understanding that there's emotion, not just logic, involved in every interaction. And emotion often is ignored with human to machine because it's very hard to address until now. This is why digital humans are actually something that will become a part of everyone's life here. Like, we don't interact with digital humans every day, but mark my words, remember this moment. You will interact with digital humans every day within the next 10 years. It will just be very normal because of this reason. So talk about telecommunications companies. So one of our clients, they're up here. So Max from Deutsche Telekom. So their big problem when they first engaged with us was telecommunications products are complex for some people. Not everyone knows what a gigabyte is. Not everyone knows how many wireless access points you need in your home. All these types of things. And so for someone who comes on their website for self-service, choose your plan. How many access points do you need? They had the hypothesis that was, if we could address the emotions of intimidation and doubt, we could increase our conversion. Well, it just so happens to be true. The digital human was able to listen to people, just use their own language, which can be multilingual, but it can also just be talking normal, right? Like, man, I got 4 kids. These kids are gaming all the time. We do some Netflix. Like, I don't know what I need, but this is the starting point. And then the digital human's able to listen and then take that, and instead of information search, guess what we're able to do now? It feels hyper-personalized, and it's matching. It's now saying, hey, hearing what you're saying, I actually think this will be the right plan for you. Now, just if you could tell me how many bedrooms in the house, I could probably recommend how many access points you need as well. And Deutsche Telekom, they went on stage and said they increased conversion by 580% just in that case. Purely, not because the information was different, just because it addressed the emotion, and they just made it feel more personalized and more human. And that's the power of this type of technology. The age that we live in is no longer information age. We're about to step into experience age. And everything changes because design needs to be for emotion, not just information.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. And I think when you get into even, say, areas like tech support, where you've got relatively complex issues. I mean, there's huge, depending on the company, huge knowledge base, many million things that can go wrong with products. Can you integrate, say, a company's knowledge base? Can you integrate a million past phone conversations and like which solutions worked? Because I had a problem with my own telecom company not too long ago. Excellent company, they're seamless global service. They just show up in a country and it works. Except I was in the middle of Dublin for a speech, and suddenly on the street it stopped working, and I had to find a pub, connect to Wi-Fi, and it took me literally an hour and a half of chatting with 3 humans to finally resolve the problem. And the ultimate resolution was ticking off one tiny little box. But to me, I was thinking, I'm not looking for human interaction here, human. All I want is the answer, and I think that a well-trained AI, theoretically at least, could have drilled right down to the correct answer instead of going through the sort of mindless scripts of, have you rebooted your phone, do this, do that, and so on. Is it at that level at this point where it can solve these kinds of problems?
Yeah. Then there's actually 2 really interesting points in those statements of your experience, right? The first is the technology ready? I think actually probably the biggest disruption will be in contact center. I think the technology is sufficient because the data's been there, and now we have large language models and technology that you can effectively create safe boundaries around that data and information. And we're already hearing of contact centers that have basically taken up to 70% of their traffic away. Some are easier than others, some are more prepared than others, but this will certainly be one of the biggest disruptive areas. The second point that you make, though, is I don't really need a human, I just need the answer, right? And I think that's really important when we're talking about living, breathing AI like digital humans. Maybe those use cases as well. The best way I can describe it is human-to-human comparative. So if Anthony and I are friends, which we are, I'm actually not going to video FaceTime him for everything, right? Sometimes I just text message him and say, are you actually going to be here to watch me speak and laugh at my jokes? I'll just text him that. But if I'm actually trying to work out something and I feel like an interaction is important, what are the emotions? Like before Deutsche Telekom, good example, intimidation, doubt. I feel like an interaction will give me confidence and trust. Therefore, that's a really good use case for this type of technology. So it's not a one-size-fits-all in AI. It's about assessing what is the actual need of the person and the problem they're trying to solve, and what's the best modality to solve that. For your problem, actually, I think an asynchronous message or something could have been perfect. And you just ask your question, and then something comes back saying, sorted, this is the answer, right? And there's nothing wrong with obviously that modality and the match. But for this, you need to think about what is the emotions that need to be addressed.
There is, I noticed just a bit of lag in response where it does whatever it has to do to respond. It seems like in some kind of text chatting message, that's normal. I mean, even if you're dealing with a human rep, sometimes they go away for a really long time, and it's very annoying because they're handling 3 other calls or something. But for a voice chat, say over a phone, just a plain voice chat, we're not looking at somebody's face. Is that response fast enough? Do you fill that gap somehow?
Yeah, I think it's always going to get quicker too. Real time is hard. Real time is, compared to a human-to-human conversation, that's the benchmark, and that's where you have to perform to. And we have customers that are able to do that because they put everything very close together in the data center. And in some of our customers, and even UneeQ, we just use cloud services and point APIs all over the place, and you can get 4-second kind of delays, sometimes a little bit longer. And the shortest answer is you want to make that quicker, and it's going to be quicker because I don't know if anyone who's following. There's a company called Grok, and inferencing now on a large language model is sub 1 second. And so when you think about how fast that is now to get the answer, for technology like this, we can take something in sub 1 second and plug it in. Now we're in the sub 2 second response times. And I think that's the exciting thing, is whatever you experience today, hold your breath. And as long as you hold that breath, by the time you release it, there is something just made that better, faster, quicker. And so that's what's really exciting.
Right, maybe a few little clicking sounds to simulate typing, which some companies do, make it seem that it's actually working to find the answer for a few seconds. But yeah, that's very. Now, what do you envision a typical business call center looking like 5 years down the road? I mean, right now you've got sort of various levels of support where the like least trained reps and the tier 2 and tier 3 and so on. Obviously, AI can take over a portion of that work. We just saw Klarna, I think, fintech company, who announced that they had cut 800 outsourced call center people. And they made a point, these weren't our people that we cut, but they were someplace. And that's clearly what's going to keep happening. What do you think that call center is going to look like? Will there be any humans, or how will that be structured?
Well, I think really what we're talking about is a really disruptive conversation. Like I actually think like countries like Philippines and places like that, they're the other ones I actually really worry about, and I don't know enough about what their government's doing, because I actually think outsourced contact centers will be the first to be impacted in a really big way. And I think to answer your question directly, there will always be a need for human support in a way that we deal with edge cases, the way that we don't tolerate machines to have a level of autonomy to make certain decisions. They have to fall in line with policy. But there's so much grey. The world is not black and white. And inside that grey, it can be technical. That grey can be like more social. And so there's always going to be a need to have humans. What I would also stress is that it's not that we're going to have a shortage of roles for people because of AI. Like a lot of the customers we deal with, like they're literally creating operating models where you have huge numbers of new hires that are curating, QAing, building policy, like design. Like when I talk about emotional design, like not many people like have that skill set today. That's a new skill set coming through as they think about how conversation and conversation design affects that. So net, we're going to have a lot of new roles and a lot of growth. And then also considering some areas of our lives are impacted because there's not enough human resources. And I think this is so important. Like our healthcare system, it's understaffed, and there's the highest rate of burnout we've seen across doctors and nurses. And if you're connected family members or in that industry, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. How do you solve that problem? You can't just create humans. So now we have this amazing opportunity where AI can actually augment and supplement some of the responsibilities that free them up and take a lot of stress. We do a lot of work even like in post-op. So if you've had heart surgery, we created a cardiac coach. So it's able to help people understand how the statins and other medications affecting them, all the questions that you have post-op. Today, that's mostly dealt with a brochure and a pamphlet and one meeting as you leave the hospital. We have over $100 billion problem of readmittance because people try to figure things out themselves because there's no one else to do, or the cost is too high. And so they end up back and getting surgery, being really unwell. And tragically, some people, die and are sick for a long time because of this. This is a problem that is so solvable today with the technology we have today. Now it's about brave people actually looking into the innovation and really starting to prove this out, test it out, figure out the edge cases. And that's what I love about this technology is it's an equalizer as well. Education's another one. Like we're helping kids who are in areas that don't have access to really great educators, and we're teaching them technology skills. We're helping them actually learn interview skills and how to apply for a job, and just all these things that this technology now can, because it's a real-time conversation that is more human, that's responsive to you. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Danny, you threw out the term emotional design, which I think is really important. It's been used in many contexts. Talk about how you design for emotion.
Yeah, well, I'm probably the least qualified person in some ways. We have people that are very good at doing this, and they'll laugh if they see this. So anyway, but the way I think about it, often we design today with user experience around user journeys. And so you can map out a user journey and you think about, the various points of friction, the goals of the user as they obviously try and navigate your experience, your digital offering. And the level of emotional design that really influences that is, instead of like just looking at the friction points from a technology point of view, like a lot of like e-commerce sites are looking at friction, like how fast load times are, what is the cart abandonment rates, all these different things that are important. They don't go away. But I think one of the things that you're not asking is, what is the emotion of the person coming into this? And I'll use this example again because it's so easy and I've already told the outcome. If intimidation is an emotion, where does that come from? It comes from the likelihood that it feels like the stakes are really high, and that the knowledge and confidence in oneself to actually make the right decision is lacking, right? And so how do you then turn that into a conversation that goes straight to the root of that emotion? And sometimes it's just validation. A lot of us feel so much better even when we're validated. It feels like someone actually just understands, they put themselves in our shoes, right? So it's like, hey, I can understand that these kind of decisions can be hard, and there's a lot of technical terms here. But I just want to assure you, you just tell me what you need, and I'm going to provide a recommendation for you today. That is just the start of the emotional design, bringing you back towards confidence and trust and away from intimidation and doubt. So that there changes the game with conversion.
Many humans aren't all that good at empathy and understanding how what they're saying might affect the customer. Just did an article about a cruise line that rescheduled a ship, inconveniencing the passengers, where most would miss their flights going home for a corporate photo shoot. And they said, we're doing this, we will reimburse you for any costs you incur if you incur those costs. And that was it. To me, the biggest problem wasn't that the whole concept, but the fact that they showed no recognition that their best customers were suddenly going to be thrown into chaos in the middle of their vacation because of this change. And I'm pretty sure you could even ask ChatGPT that question. Gee, we're going to reschedule something. What might customers perceive here? And it would tell you exactly what their problems would be. So that's great. What are some of the more unusual applications you've looked at or been approached about?
Well, I don't know if any have really stood out as unusual. I mean, we get to see a lot, right? And I mean, we've seen everything from dating apps. So, can my digital version of myself date your digital version, work out if it will be a good date, and then if it is, then we'll actually decide to meet in real life. So there's been a few of those. But, when I dig into it and I talk to the founder a bit more, like dating safety is a real challenge, right? And for a lot of people, this is like a way of building a level of trust. I don't know if it would work or not, but it's valid kind of thinking behind it. For us, we see like some really great areas though. I mean, I do this not just because I want to create a big business, but I actually just do it because I care about the impact. And so for me, the things that have really just changed my life, one of the earliest digital humans that we did, we helped people with disabilities navigate a government website. 400,000 people in Australia, and they were struggling to actually navigate this site, and they needed to use this site to get access to welfare, to actually live, food, support, services, equipment. And so, again, the CIO of that government department was one of those brave people that I talk about, who said, I don't know how we're going to fix this website and whether we can even fix it. Why don't we try put a digital person there that can interact with people and just help them? And it changed their lives. It changed my life. We would get like calls and videos from people like crying, saying how amazing it was that they can actually use this now. And it's those things that I care about. Like I talked about the education. I've talked about healthcare. I mean, we were working with kids with autism, and what people, may or may not realize is there are amazing organizations out there that are working with kids with autism to bring them into the workforce, and they're phenomenal at certain areas like in AI, data. Like it was such an eye-opener for me. But the biggest challenge is like employers not knowing how to manage a workforce who obviously now they have to understand how autism affects this conversation, and I'm trying to do a performance review and all these things. So we create things like digital humans that give a coach to the employer and a coach to obviously the young employee who's now able to understand things as well the other way. Those are the kind of things that I think just really get me out of bed. So to answer your question.
You mentioned coaching a few times. I think one of your users is a coach who did you create a digital version of him? Like, could you create a digital Roger that I could put on my website that would look like me and sound like me and answer questions using my knowledge base? Or do you mostly stick with the more generic humans?
Yeah, we mostly stick with, obviously creating a brand ambassador, but brand ambassadors already exist, and you can absolutely, create a digital version of yourself, right? And that people can interact with. And we've done that several times. We've obviously worked with like Anand Mahindra from Mahindra. We did Einstein. We've had sports stars and celebrities. We've done some work in wellness, bringing celebrities into the wellness experience to encourage men to talk more about their issues and things like that. So yeah, we definitely do that. I think the interesting insight and learning for that is like, think about creating a digital version of yourself, and who's going to control what your digital version says, and what are you going to let yourself talk about? And it becomes quite a harder problem than just creating a fictitious. Like Anand Mahindra had a really good one where we asked him questions in the QA process. Does he like playing golf? And the answer was actually, I believe, accurate, which he talked about all these exclusive golf courses around the world that he plays. But obviously for him, that's terrible. He's a super humble guy who doesn't want to be seen as like this billionaire who lives this lavish lifestyle and only plays on these courses. So it's that balance where knowledge may be true, but it's not necessarily how you would communicate and share that. So cloning yourself as a digital form, 100% possible. The hardest part is how do you want to curate that? And we work very closely to solve that problem, but it's much harder than a fictitious character.
Right, I would guess. And like in my case, I wouldn't want it to be a complete me, but just say drawing on books and writing and whatnot, answer questions. And I had limited results. I tried that with ChatGPT and Bard, and it gave very generic answers to questions that I asked it rather than something that sounded like me. But Claude 2 actually did a pretty good job, and Claude 3 just came out, so I'm anxious to give that a whirl. But again, just drawing on the knowledge that it had sucked in from books that were probably pirated and sucked in, or through the internet, it gave a very credible answer. So to me, that would be useful for people who want to provide advice, can't respond to everybody individually, but could still provide a useful service. You're talking about simplifying interacting with the government agency. Now, you're from New Zealand. I don't know if you've ever had to deal with the U.S. tax system. It is horrendously complicated. 90% of U.S. taxpayers either use a professional preparer or they use tax software simply because the process itself is so difficult. Have you thought at all about providing a user-friendly front end for the U.S. tax system? Because basically that's what made Intuit rich. They turned the forms into sort of an interview process, but obviously without digital avatars.
Yeah, so I brought the accent over here. I actually live here, so in the US. So I've had the fortunate experience of obviously navigating that system. And like every day I think about things where this will be a much bigger improvement. Again, let's take this as an example. Let's take something like TurboTax or Intuit or what that might look like. Great services, and the interview itself is helpful, whether that would be in a human form or whether in chat form. Now you're starting to think about like, what's the actual emotional value in here to have a visual representation, right? And I think something where you start getting into complexity where now someone's actually getting a sense of, I don't actually know the answer to the question you're asking, right? Is this going to cost me something? Is this now? So now I've got like this level where if you can provide more conversational and visual experience to say, hey, I'm the expert, I can take care of this, I can ask you these questions. If you don't know the answers, don't worry, we've got a way to still work through this. And now I'm creating an ambassador, and that ambassador now flows through to my marketing. Now TurboTax sell like the Turbo Coach and whatever. So before you know it, you've got like the Geico Gecko of TurboTax. But you talk to, you know, that is trusted, and marketing are able to put all the right messages around that says, we will make sure we help you navigate in such a way that your family, your finances, your life is safe. And when you combine that with the real-time interaction, the brand ambassador, and how you bring all that together, I think that's viable. I think that actually adds real value. And I think the biggest value probably trying to add in there from a TurboTax point of view is digital containment. I think what happens is when anyone starts to get those kind of levels, they're going straight to on the phone using higher cost resources, and I think that's what they'll be trying to keep it more running through digital containment. Makes it a much more high margin service for them.
Right. Well, even today, as good as the products like TurboTax are, they tend to be more or less a flow chart where, ask the question, get an answer, then it goes something else. If you search for help, it uses, fairly straightforward keyword search, as opposed to the more nuanced discussion that you could have with AI, where it would interpret
Matching.
Your emotional state and try and interpret okay, they're asking this, but what do they really mean, and that sort of thing. So, that could be a killer app. Is there a killer app that you think this is going to be best for? Where do you see it going from here?
Yeah, so we work obviously with hundreds of organizations now. So some of them are listed here, but the actual, my favorite kind of use cases where I just think it's undeniable outside of just the impact ones I love, but they require someone to be brave. They require those, but where it's like bread and butter for what we do, it's two particular areas. So the first is in training. So a digital human can simulate a human conversation really well. So if you think about like onboarding or sales training, if anyone here runs a sales org, so salespeople, they practice on customers when they're getting started. You know how much pipeline you burn when you practice on customers? Millions of millions. So you put a digital human in place that a salesperson, as part of their onboarding, can practice. It's testing them for their sales skills, testing them for messaging. There's a number of like behavioral nuances that you're looking for as well, and you can actually assess that against successful salespeople in your organization and see how that actually is performing, and then that is giving the person, the individual, because role play, I don't know if anyone here has done role play, but role play can be intimidating when you're doing it in front of your boss or things like that. But if you're doing it with a digital human, you can just practice over and over again, right? So it's pretty exciting, that area, and that doesn't have to be for sales training. That can be for any training. And so I love training with this technology. It makes a lot of sense. I don't think there's any technology that can really do this well except this area. I talked a little bit about Deutsche Telekom, but it's what we call product geniuses. And I think product geniuses are really helping people understand complex products. And I think that's a really great area to have a conversation that really helps you navigate making a good decision. Nothing I've ever seen works as well as this type of technology. Obviously, I talked about their 580% conversion uplift. That's not uncommon across all our customers, and when they're applying that. So we call them product geniuses, but you could say product experts or customer concierge to help people through navigating some of the complexities in the journey, and that's a really good use.
Yeah, I like that. It's because there you're really going beyond these sort of entry-level conversation that's scripted into something that's much higher level, but you're still able to do it. And I think the role play example is great too, because I've seen role plays at training where suddenly somebody's picked out and said, okay, we've just taught you this technique, now you're going to try it on this person. And clearly that is a high stress situation, and sometimes it works well, but other times not so much. But the ability to just do it privately and go back and do it again, or with variations. Anything else you'd like to add at this point, Danny?
Well, I can actually, because there's always questions and the rest. So that's Sophie as well. So if anyone wants to talk to Sophie, she's on our website. Just as we experience of it as well, and kind of I guess feel for yourself what that actually is like as an experience. I think it's really important. And I guess the only other the other points that I make is the way that we experience this technology is primarily through 2D screens today. But I really sense that I think the future in spatial computing is going to be really, really important. Obviously, Vision Pro came out with a really good price tag, but it's the version 1, and it won't take long till version 2 and 3 are in the market, and you'll have really strong competition. Oculus not going to sit down, or MetaQuest and the rest. So that's going to be a fascinating space as well, because the immersion will be another killer app for this type of AI technology, where we can put ourselves in simulated experience that just aren't conversational, but there'll be environments, and I think that's going to open up new areas of training. Again, you could probably look at different areas of healthcare, physio, wellness. We're pretty excited about that space as well, and really enjoy talking to people about what they might be thinking about in that space, so I can get an understanding of where our roadmap needs to point to. So I'll put that out there as well. And clearly anyone that's interested in this technology, we want to have a conversation. So
great. Well, Danny, thank you so much.
It's great. Thank you.
And thank you.